My daughter-in-law Victoria stood in my doorway at 7 in the morning, her perfectly manicured hand thrust toward me with a stack of legal documents. Behind her, my son Daniel avoided my eyes, his shoulders hunched like a guilty child's. The rain hammered against the porch roof, matching the sudden pounding of my heart. "What papers?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. Victoria's smile was sharp enough to draw blood. "The deed transfer. For this house. Daniel, and I need it more than you do. I'd lived in this house for 43 years. My late husband Thomas had carried me over the threshold the day we married. My children had taken their first steps on these hardwood floors. Every room held memories that breathed and lived and wrapped around me like a second skin. "Get off my property," I said quietly. Victoria's eyes flashed. "We'll see about that, Margaret." The way she said my name made it sound like a curse. "Come on, Daniel." My son, my firstborn, the boy I'd nursed through pneumonia at age 6, who'd cried in my arms when his first girlfriend broke his heart, finally looked at me. For just a moment, I saw something flicker across his face. Regret? Guilt? Then Victoria grabbed his arm and pulled him away. I closed the door and leaned against it, my hands trembling. I had no idea this was only the beginning. 3 days earlier, everything had been different. Not perfect. Nothing in life ever is, but manageable. Ordinary. I'd been in my garden, tending to the roses Thomas had planted the year before he died, when my phone rang. "Mom." Daniel's voice had that careful, measured tone he used when he wanted something. "Victoria, and I need to talk to you about something important." "Of course, sweetheart. Come for dinner tomorrow." "Actually, we'd like to come over today. Is that okay?" Something in his voice made my stomach tighten, but I agreed. I spent the afternoon cooking Daniel's favorite pot roast, the one with the honey-glazed carrots he'd loved since childhood. I even made my famous apple pie from scratch. When they arrived, Victoria swept into my house like she owned it, her designer heels clicking against my floors. She'd never liked me. That much had been clear from the moment Daniel introduced us 5 years ago. But she'd been civil at least. Polite enough that I could convince myself we might eventually find common ground. That hope died the moment they sat down in my living room. "Margaret," Victoria began, not waiting for pleasantries, "we need to discuss your financial situation." I blinked. "My what?" "Your finances. This house. Your retirement accounts. Your assets. I don't understand. Why would you?" "Mom," Daniel interrupted, finally meeting my eyes, "Victoria and I are worried about you. You're living alone in this big house. The property taxes are ridiculous. The maintenance costs must be overwhelming. I manage just fine. Do you?" Victoria leaned forward, her expression the picture of false concern. "Because from what we can see, you're hemorrhaging money. This house is too much for you. You should sell it and move into something more appropriate for a woman your age." A woman my age. I was 62, not ancient. I still worked part-time at the library. I still drove. I still had my health, my mind, my independence. "I'm not selling my house." Victoria's mask slipped slightly. "Be reasonable, Margaret. Daniel is your only son. Eventually, this house would go to him anyway. Why wait? Wouldn't it be better to transfer it now? While you can still enjoy watching us fix it up, make it into a proper family home." The words hit me like ice water. "You want me to give you my house?" "Not give," Daniel said quickly. "We'd take care of you, Mom. We'd make sure you had a nice apartment somewhere. Maybe that assisted living place on Maple Street? I saw they have a vacancy." "Assisted living?" My voice rose despite myself. "Daniel, I'm perfectly capable of living independently. I don't need." "You're alone, Margaret." Victoria's voice had gone cold. "Thomas has been dead for 8 years. You have no one. Wouldn't you rather know your family is benefiting from this house while you're still alive to see it?" I stood up, my hands clenched at my sides. "I think you should leave." Daniel looked stricken. "Mom, please." "Leave. Now." They did, but not before Victoria paused at the door and said, "Think about it, Margaret. Think about what's best for everyone. We'll be back." That was a threat, not a promise. After their morning visit with the legal papers, I didn't hear from them for 2 days. I tried calling Daniel 3 times. Each call went straight to voicemail. I left messages, casual at first, then increasingly desperate. My son had never ignored me like this. Never. On the third day, my other child called. My daughter Sarah, who lived 2 hours away with her husband Marcus and their 2 teenagers. Mom, I just got the strangest call from Daniel. What did he say? He said you're having memory problems, that you've been acting erratic and confused. He said you accused Victoria of trying to steal from you and that they're worried about your mental health. The world tilted sideways. He said what? Mom, is this true? Are you okay? Sarah, I'm fine. Your brother and Victoria want me to sign over my house to them. When I refused, they're lying about me. They're trying to make me look incompetent. Silence on the other end. Then, carefully, Mom, that sounds... why would Daniel do that? I don't know, but I'm telling you the truth. I'm not confused. I'm not having memory problems. They showed up here with legal documents demanding I transfer the deed. Okay, Mom. Okay, I believe you. But her voice had that same careful quality Daniel's had taken on. The voice you use with someone fragile. Someone who might break. Sarah, I'll come visit this weekend, okay? We can talk about everything then. I love you, Mom. She hung up before I could respond. I sat in my kitchen, Thomas's kitchen, and felt the walls of my life closing in. My son was trying to gaslight me, to steal my home, and he was turning my daughter against me in the process. I needed help. I needed proof. I needed to understand what was happening and why. That's when I decided to fight back. I started with the obvious. I called my lawyer, Martin Hendricks, who'd handled Thomas's estate. I hadn't spoken to him in years, but he remembered me immediately. Margaret, how are you? What can I do for you? I explained the situation as clearly as I could, keeping my voice steady, factual. Martin listened without interrupting. Okay, he said when I finished. First thing, don't sign anything. Second, I need you to come to my office tomorrow. Bring any documents they gave you. We'll review everything and figure out what they're trying to do. Can they really force me to give them my house? Not unless you're declared mentally incompetent, and even then, they'd need to go through the courts. It's a complicated process. But Margaret, he hesitated. If they're spreading rumors about your mental state, they might be laying groundwork for exactly that. We need to move fast. The next morning, I drove to Martin's office with the papers Victoria had thrust at me. I hadn't looked at them closely before. I'd been too shocked, too angry. Now, sitting across from Martin while he reviewed them, I watched his expression darken. This is a deed transfer with a cohabitation clause, he said finally. If you sign this, you'd be giving them ownership of the house while retaining the right to live there. But look at this section here. He pointed to a dense paragraph of legal text. I leaned closer, my reading glasses sliding down my nose. It says they can terminate your residency if they determine you're unable to maintain the property or care for yourself adequately. The determination is entirely at their discretion, meaning they could kick you out whenever they wanted. And because you'd no longer be the owner, you'd have no legal recourse. Martin set the papers down and looked at me seriously. Margaret, if you'd signed this, you'd have made yourself homeless. The floor seemed to drop away beneath me. Daniel, my Daniel, had tried to do this to me. Had stood on my porch and watched while his wife threatened me with papers that would steal everything I had. What do? We protect you. I'll draw up documents making your wishes crystal clear regarding your property. I'll also recommend you get a full medical evaluation from your doctor to document your mental competency. If they try to pursue guardianship or conservatorship, we'll have ammunition to fight it. This is really happening, I whispered. My son is really trying to steal my home. Martin's expression softened. I'm sorry, Margaret. Family cases are always the worst. But we'll fight this. You're not alone. I left his office feeling slightly less terrified, but infinitely more heartbroken. How had it come to this? What had I done to make my son hate me enough to destroy me? That evening, I did something I never thought I'd do. I hired a private investigator. The PI was a woman named Rachel Torres, recommended by Martin. She was in her 40s, sharp-eyed and no-nonsense, with the kind of presence that made you think she missed nothing. Tell me everything, she said when we met at a coffee shop downtown. Don't leave anything out, even if it seems irrelevant. So I did. I told her about Victoria's coldness from the beginning, about Daniel's gradual distancing over the past year, about the strange phone calls and canceled visits. I told her about my suspicions, vague, shapeless things I barely admitted to myself. I think Victoria is manipulating him, I said finally. But I don't know why. We're not wealthy. This house is worth something, sure, but it's not a fortune. Why go to all this trouble? Rachel made notes on her tablet. Sometimes it's not about the money itself. It's about control, power, or it could be something else entirely. Give me a week. Let me do some digging into Victoria's background, your son's finances, anything that might explain what's driving this. Will you find anything? She smiled grimly. I always find something. People like Victoria, people who are willing to destroy family for personal gain, they always leave trails. We just have to follow them. The week that followed was the longest of my life. I went through my daily routines like an automaton, shelving books at the library, tending my garden, cooking meals I barely ate. Sarah called twice, her voice careful and concerned, asking how I was feeling. I lied and said fine. What else could I say? Daniel didn't call at all. On the 8th day, Rachel asked to meet me again. This time, her expression was grim. I found something, she said, sliding a folder across the table. And it's worse than you thought. Inside the folder were financial records, court documents, and photographs. I looked up at Rachel, confused. Start at the beginning, she said. 5 years ago, before Victoria met your son, she was married to a man named Gerald Hutchins. Wealthy guy, owned a chain of hardware stores. They divorced after 3 years, and Victoria walked away with almost nothing. Prenup protected most of his assets. Okay, 2 years after that, she met Daniel. According to what I could dig up, she targeted him specifically. She knew about your late husband's life insurance payout, knew about this house, knew you were a widow with assets, and only 2 children. She saw an opportunity. My hands went cold. You're saying she married my son for money. I'm saying she married your son to get to you. Look at this. Rachel pointed to a bank statement. 6 months ago, Daniel took out a second mortgage on their condo. They're drowning in debt. Credit cards maxed out, car payments late, the works. Victoria has expensive tastes, and your son's teacher salary doesn't come close to covering them. He's a teacher. She knew that when she married him. She thought she'd have access to your money by now. When you didn't volunteer to help them financially, she started pushing. Then she started planning. Rachel pulled out more documents. 3 months ago, Victoria contacted a lawyer about filing for guardianship over you. She was told she'd need evidence of mental incompetence. That's when the rumors started. She's been telling your neighbors you're confused, that you leave the stove on, that you've been seen wandering around lost. She even called Adult Protective Services to file a complaint, anonymously, but I traced it back to her phone. She called APS on me? The betrayal was so deep I couldn't breathe. But they never contacted me, because when they did a preliminary investigation, they found nothing wrong. You have no history of confusion or incompetence. Your doctor's records are clean. So they closed the case. But Victoria didn't stop there. Rachel's expression grew darker. Last week, she met with a real estate developer. She's already planning to sell your house the moment she gets her hands on it. She's even negotiated a price, substantially more than market value, because this land is zoned for commercial development. The world spun. Victoria wasn't just trying to steal my house. She was trying to destroy the last piece of my husband's memory, the home where my children grew up, for a profit. And Daniel, I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Does he know? Rachel hesitated. That's the complicated part. I think he knows some of it. Maybe not all. Victoria is good at manipulation. She's been controlling the narrative, feeding him information little by little, making him believe you're the problem. But these financial records, the meeting with the developer, that's all Victoria. I don't think Daniel has any idea how deep this goes. So what do? You confront them, but not alone and not unprepared. We document everything, we involve your lawyer, and we make sure Daniel sees the truth. It's possible, not certain, but possible, that once he understands what Victoria's really doing, he'll back off. And if he doesn't, Rachel met my eyes. Then you fight, and you make damn sure you win. The confrontation was set for Saturday afternoon, at my house. Martin would be there as my legal representation. Rachel would be there as a witness. I invited Sarah too. I needed my daughter to see the truth, to understand I wasn't crazy or paranoid. I spent Friday night cleaning the house, a nervous habit I couldn't shake. Every surface had to be perfect, every photograph straightened, as if having a spotless home would somehow protect me from what was coming. Saturday dawned cold and gray. I made coffee I didn't drink and waited. Sarah arrived first with Marcus. She hugged me tightly, and I felt her fear in the tension of her shoulders. "Mom, what's going on?" "Really? You'll see. I need you to listen to everything before you make any judgments. Can you do that?" She nodded, though uncertainty shadowed her face. Martin arrived next with Rachel. They sat up at my dining room table, laying out documents and evidence like battle plans. At 2 o'clock exactly, Daniel knocked on the door. I opened it to find him and Victoria standing there, both dressed like they were attending a business meeting. Daniel looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes. Victoria looked triumphant. "Mom," Daniel said carefully, "Victoria told me you wanted to talk. Come in. There are some people I'd like you to meet." Victoria's confidence faltered when she saw Martin and Rachel. "What is this?" "This," I said quietly, "is the truth." We all sat down, us on one side of the table, them on the other. It felt like a trial. Maybe it was. Martin spoke first. "Mr. and Mrs. Walker, I'm Margaret's attorney. We've become aware of some concerning activities regarding attempts to obtain power over Mrs. Walker's property and finances. Before we proceed, I want to make something clear. Any further attempts to coerce, manipulate, or defraud Mrs. Walker will result in legal action." Victoria's face went white, then red. "This is ridiculous. We're family. We're trying to help." "Help?" Rachel interrupted. "Is that what you call spreading false rumors about someone's mental health? Filing false APS reports? Meeting with developers to sell property that doesn't belong to you?" Daniel's head snapped toward Victoria. "What is she talking about?" "It's lies, Daniel. They're lying." "No," I said firmly. "They're not." I stood up and walked to the window, needing distance from the toxicity at my table. "Daniel, 6 months ago, I thought we had a good relationship. Not perfect, but good. Then things started to change. You started pulling away, canceling visits, avoiding my calls. I thought maybe I'd done something wrong, that maybe I'd somehow failed you as a mother." "Mom, let me finish." I turned to face him. "Then you and Victoria showed up asking me to sign over my house, to give up everything your father and I built. When I refused, Victoria threatened me. She said I'd never see my grandchildren again. And that's when I realized this wasn't about helping me. This was about taking everything I have." Victoria stood up. "This is insane. Daniel, we're leaving." "Sit down," Daniel said, his voice hard. "I want to hear this." Victoria froze. Something flickered across her face. Shock, maybe, that her husband was defying her. Rachel picked up the folder. "Mrs. Walker, I'm a private investigator. Over the past week, I've documented your activities, the anonymous APS report you filed, the false statements you made to neighbors, the meeting with Anderson Development Corporation about selling this property. Would you like to see the evidence? You can't prove. I have photographs, phone records, financial documents. I have everything." Rachel's voice was ice. "You married Daniel to access his mother's money. When that didn't work, you tried to steal it. You manipulated your husband, isolated his mother, and planned to commit fraud. All for a property sale that would net you close to $300,000 after debts." The silence that followed was deafening. Daniel stared at Victoria like he'd never seen her before. "Tell me this isn't true." "Daniel, sweetheart, they're twisting everything. Tell me the truth now." Victoria's mask finally shattered. What emerged beneath it was cold and calculating and utterly without remorse. "Fine. Yes, I met with the developer. Yes, I thought we could get your mother to transfer the house. Why is that so terrible? She's old, Daniel. She's going to die eventually anyway. Why shouldn't we benefit from it now, while we can actually use the money? While we can use it. Daniel's voice rose. You mean while you can use it? For what, Victoria? More designer handbags? Another car we can't afford? We're drowning in debt because of you. Victoria shot back. Your pathetic teacher's salary barely covers groceries. I gave up my career for you. You never had a career. You jumped from one rich man to another, hoping to cash in, and when that didn't work, you set your sights on my mother. Daniel was standing now, shaking with rage. You made me doubt her. You made me think she was losing her mind. You made me betray my own mother for your greed. It's not greed, it's survival. That house is wasted on her. She doesn't need it. We do. We need. Get out, Daniel said quietly. What? Get out of my mother's house. Now. Victoria looked between us, her expression desperate now. Daniel, please. We can fix this. We can. Get out, or I'll call the police and have you removed for trespassing. For a moment, I thought Victoria might argue. Then something in Daniel's face must have convinced her he meant it. She grabbed her purse, shot me a look of pure hatred, and stormed out, slamming the door so hard the pictures on the wall rattled. Daniel sank into his chair, his head in his hands. Mom, I'm so sorry. I'm so incredibly sorry. I moved to his side, my hand on his shoulder. I know. I should have seen it. I should have questioned it. But she was so convincing, and I wanted to believe her because I loved her and his voice broke. I almost destroyed you because I was too blind to see what she was doing. You see it now. That's what matters. Sarah, who'd been silent this whole time, spoke up. What happens now? Martin answered. Now we document everything. We file for a restraining order against Victoria, if necessary. We make sure she can never threaten Margaret again. And Daniel, he looked at my son. You'll need to file for divorce, because if you stay married to her, she could still have legal claims to your eventual inheritance. Daniel nodded numbly. I'll do whatever it takes. Whatever Mom needs. But I barely heard them. I was watching the window, where Victoria's car still sat in my driveway. She was inside it, her phone pressed to her ear, her expression twisted with rage. And somehow, I knew this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The next 2 weeks were chaotic. Daniel moved out of the condo he'd shared with Victoria and into a hotel while he looked for an apartment. Martin filed paperwork for a restraining order, which was granted based on Victoria's documented harassment and threats. Sarah came to stay with me for a few days, helping me install new locks and a security system. I'm sorry I doubted you, she said one evening as we sat together on the porch, watching the sunset. Even for a moment. I should have known better. You were trying to make sense of something that didn't make sense. I understand. Still, Daniel isn't the only one who should have seen through her. We sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Sarah asked the question I'd been dreading. Mom, what do you think Victoria will do now? I don't know. I hope she'll just move on. Find some other victim. But I didn't believe that, and neither did Sarah. Women like Victoria didn't give up easily. They didn't accept defeat. I should have trusted that instinct. 3 weeks after the confrontation, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Hello, Mrs. Walker? This is Detective Lisa Morrison with the police department. I need to ask you some questions about an incident involving your daughter-in-law, Victoria Walker. My stomach dropped. What kind of incident? Ma'am, I'd prefer to discuss this in person. Can you come down to the station? An hour later, I sat in a stark interrogation room, Martin beside me at my insistence. Detective Morrison was a tired-looking woman in her 50s, with graying hair and sharp eyes. Mrs. Walker, 3 days ago, Victoria Walker filed a report claiming you assaulted her. She says you showed up at her apartment, forced your way inside, and physically attacked her. She has photographs of bruises and a witness statement from a neighbor who claims to have heard screaming. The world tilted. That's impossible. I haven't been anywhere near Victoria since she left my house. There's a restraining order. I'm legally prohibited from contacting her. I'm aware of the restraining order. That's actually what makes her claim more serious. If you violated a court order to assault her. I didn't. My voice rose despite myself. Detective, This is another one of her manipulations. She's done this before, spread lies, fabricated evidence. Ask my lawyer. Ask my daughter. Check my phone records, my credit cards, anything. I haven't left my neighborhood in days. Detective Morrison studied me for a long moment. Then she pulled out her phone and showed me a photograph. It was Victoria. Her face bruised, her lips split, her shirt torn. She looked genuinely hurt, genuinely terrified. She did that to herself, I said immediately. Or she had someone else do it. I didn't touch her. Can you prove where you were 3 nights ago between 8 and 10 p.m.? 3 nights ago. I tried to think, panic making my thoughts scatter. I was home, alone. I had dinner, watched television, went to bed early. There's no one who can verify that. Martin leaned forward. Detective, my client is being framed. Victoria Walker has a documented history of harassment and manipulation directed at Mrs. Walker. This is clearly retaliation for the restraining order. Maybe, but I have a victim with injuries and a witness statement. I need more than she's lying to dismiss this. Then let me give you more, a voice said from the doorway. We all turned. Rachel Torres stood there, holding a laptop. Who are you? Detective Morrison demanded. Rachel Torres, private investigator. She walked in without being invited and set the laptop on the table. Mrs. Walker hired me to document Victoria Walker's activities, and I've been watching Victoria's apartment for the past 2 weeks, just in case she tried something. I have video footage from 3 nights ago that you're going to want to see. She turned the laptop around and hit play. The footage was grainy but clear enough. It showed Victoria's apartment building entrance. The timestamp read 7:45 p.m., 3 nights ago. At 7:52 p.m., a man entered the building. Large, muscular, his face partially obscured by a hood. At 8:17 p.m., screaming echoed from an upper floor, faint but audible on the recording. At 8:34 p.m., the same man left the building. This time, his hood was down and his face was visible. At 9:03 p.m., Victoria emerged, got in her car, and drove away. When she returned 2 hours later, her face was bruised exactly as it appeared in the photos. She hired someone to beat her up, Rachel said flatly, so she could frame Mrs. Walker. That man's name is Kyle Brennan. He's got priors for assault, and I traced a payment from Victoria's account to his 2 days before this happened. She paid him $3,000 to make it look convincing. Detective Morrison stared at the screen, her expression hardening. You're telling me she paid someone to assault her just to frame a 62-year-old woman? That's exactly what I'm telling you. The detective looked at me, then at Martin, then back at Rachel. I need copies of all of this. Every piece of evidence you have. If what you're saying is true, Victoria Walker is going to jail for filing a false police report and conspiracy. It's all yours, Rachel said. And detective? I've got more. Financial records showing Victoria's been embezzling from her current employer. Medical records proving she lied about a previous miscarriage to manipulate her first husband. Phone records showing she's been harassing Margaret Walker from burner phones to get around the restraining order. This woman is a professional con artist, and she's been doing this for years. I couldn't breathe. The scope of Victoria's crimes was overwhelming. She hadn't just gone after my house. She'd built an entire life out of manipulation and fraud. Detective Morrison stood up. Mrs. Walker, you're free to go. And I apologize for putting you through this. We'll be bringing Victoria in for questioning immediately. Victoria was arrested that evening. The charges kept mounting. Filing a false police report, conspiracy to commit fraud, witness tampering, violations of the restraining order, and eventually embezzlement from her employer. Rachel's evidence was airtight. She'd been thorough to the point of obsession. Daniel came to see me the night of Victoria's arrest. He looked like he'd aged a decade in 3 weeks. I married a monster, he said, sitting in my kitchen, the same chair he'd sat in as a boy when he'd come home from school and told me about his day. I brought her into our family. I let her almost destroy you. Daniel, you're a victim too. She manipulated you. Stop making excuses for me. He slammed his hand on the table, startling both of us. I'm 38 years old, Mom. I'm not a child. I should have seen through her. I should have protected you. Instead, I almost handed her everything. But you didn't. When it mattered, you chose right. He looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. Did I? Or did I only choose right when I had no other option? When the evidence was shoved in my face? I didn't have an answer for that. Maybe he was right. Maybe he'd been complicit longer than either of us wanted to admit. What matters, I said finally, is what you do now. How you rebuild. How you make amends. To yourself as much as to me. I want to help you, Mom. Whatever you need. New security system, regular visits. Just let me try to fix what I broke. You didn't break anything that can't be healed. And yes, you can help. You can start by taking care of yourself, getting divorced, moving forward with your life. He nodded, but the guilt in his eyes didn't fade. I wondered if it ever would. Victoria's trial was set for 6 months later. In the meantime, she made bail, $10,000 put up by her parents, who'd flown in from Colorado looking shocked and devastated. Apparently, Victoria had told them she'd married a wealthy man and was living a perfect life. They'd had no idea about the debt, the schemes, the cruelty. With Victoria out on bail, I didn't feel safe. Despite the restraining order, despite the ankle monitor she was required to wear, I knew she blamed me for everything. In her twisted mind, I was the villain who destroyed her marriage and her freedom. I was right to be afraid. It happened on a Tuesday night, 6 weeks before the trial. I was in my garden, stupid, reckless, but I'd refused to let Victoria steal my joy in the one place I felt closest to Thomas. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, and I was deadheading roses when I heard footsteps behind me. I turned to find Victoria standing there. She looked terrible, gaunt, wild-eyed, her hair unwashed and tangled. Her court-mandated ankle monitor was visible beneath her jeans. "You destroyed my life," she said flatly. "Victoria, you're violating your bail conditions. You need to leave." "Shut up." She pulled something from her jacket. A knife, not large, but sharp and gleaming in the dying light. "You ruined everything. Daniel was mine. This house was supposed to be mine. My whole future was supposed to be mine, and you took it all away." My heart hammered, but I kept my voice steady. "I didn't take anything from you. You did this to yourself. Liar." She moved closer, the knife raised. "You poisoned Daniel against me. You hired that investigator to dig up lies. You're the reason I'm going to prison. I'm the reason? Victoria, you beat yourself up to frame me. You embezzled money from your job. You married my son to steal from me. Every single thing that's happened to you is because of choices you made." No, she was crying now, ugly, desperate sobs. "I had to do those things. I had to. You don't understand. I needed that money. I needed this house. Without it, I'm nothing. I have nothing. And it's all your fault." She lunged. I don't remember consciously deciding to move. Instinct took over. I ducked sideways, and the knife slashed through the air where my chest had been. Victoria stumbled, off balance, and I grabbed her wrist with both hands. We struggled. She was younger, stronger, fueled by desperation and rage. But I had something she didn't. I was fighting for my life in my own garden, on my own land, and I'd be damned if I'd let her take that from me too. "Help!" I screamed, hoping someone would hear. "Someone help me." Victoria wrenched her arm free and raised the knife again. This time, I grabbed a garden trowel from the ground and swung it wildly. It connected with her temple, and she staggered back, blood streaming down her face. That's when the siren started. Later, I'd learned that Rachel had been monitoring Victoria's ankle monitor remotely, a precaution she'd insisted on. The moment Victoria's GPS showed her approaching my address, Rachel had called 911. Police swarmed my garden. They found Victoria on the ground, bleeding and incoherent, the knife still in her hand. They found me standing over her, shaking so hard I couldn't hold the trowel anymore. An officer wrapped a blanket around my shoulders. "Ma'am, are you hurt?" "No, I don't think so." Is she? She's alive. Ambulance is on the way. Can you tell me what happened?" I told him. All of it. The attack, the struggle, the self-defense. He wrote everything down while another officer photographed the scene, the knife, Victoria's injuries, my torn shirt. "You did good, ma'am," he said finally. Most people freeze up in situations like this. You fought back. You're alive because you fought back. I nodded numbly, but I didn't feel victorious. I felt hollowed out, emptied of everything except exhaustion and grief. Victoria went back to jail, this time without bail. The knife attack added attempted murder to her list of charges. Her parents visited me the next day, both of them crying, apologizing for their daughter, begging me to understand she'd had a difficult childhood. She'd always struggled. She'd never been quite right. I listened politely and told them I hoped they could find peace. I didn't tell them that their excuses meant nothing to me. Victoria had made her choices. She tried to kill me. Nothing in her past could justify that. The trial, when it finally happened, was mercifully quick. Victoria's public defender tried to argue mental illness, but the evidence of premeditation, the planning, the calculated manipulation, the deliberate fraud, undermined that defense. She was convicted on multiple counts and sentenced to 12 years in prison. I attended the sentencing. I wanted to see it end. I needed closure. Victoria stared at me from the defendant's table, her expression empty. No tears, no remorse, just nothing. Like